Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Big Scuba Podcast. My name is Ian. I am one of the co-hosts of this Big Scuba Podcast, and the other one is...
Hello, welcome to the Big Scuba Podcast. My name is Gemma.
These episodes are sponsored by Narked at 90. They are beyond technical. Welcome back. Thanks for downloading this episode. What is this episode all about? Well, we have two guests because there's a bit of a special one. This is the Father's Day episode. This is a little bit of, we went back and we spoke to these guys back in May 2020.
We did, and it was in preparation for Father's Day, which is celebrated in the UK on the, well, it's the 16th tomorrow. Sunday the 16th is Father's Day. So it might be a bit different in other countries, but that's in the UK.
Happy Father's Day. So what is this podcast all about? Let me tell you. So Gemma and I, we are scuba divers, and we like being under the water. We like being on the water because we also like paddleboard and kayak as well. And also we talk to divers, people who like being under the water, who like to take pretty pictures of fish and wrecks and rocks and all sorts of manner of things.
Yeah, and it's not just scuba divers that we have spoken to, actually, is it? It's been people that have been connected to the watery world in terms of their hobbies or their
business.
Jobs, businesses. So that includes, we've spoken to astronauts, we've spoken to artists, sculptors,
professors,
poets.
Who else we spoke to? Explorers, people who've been down to Mariana Trench. So mine clearance.
Military
people.
Combat diver we've spoken to.
A whole plethora of people. And basically we've also speak to people who just everyday people, like getting in the water, going for a dive. And you might see them up at Stony, up at Vobster, at Cape and Ray, on a Saturday, dragging along the bottom, having some fun underwater.
We've spoken to some of our friends, haven't we? Like Matt Ribbett, Ethan, Rowan from Ireland. Yeah. So they're just people that are passionate about diving. They're not big names in the diving world, but they just love getting
in. Unbelievable. We've been going 4+ years now, and this is 183. So there's 182 other episodes out there.
Well, that's pretty amazing.
All free. All free. There ain't much in the world is free, but the Big Scuba is. How about that?
Share the Big Scuba Podcast with your friends, give us a review, and it all helps get this podcast found. And you can listen to it from our website and on all major podcast platforms and even YouTube.
Yeah. So what were we doing last weekend? We were on the paddle boards, weren't we?
Yes.
On our sea-line paddle boards, having great fun, going up and down around the lake and just enjoying the fresh air of Norfolk.
Yes, and it was quite a nice day. It was a bit windy, but the paddle boards, the sea-line paddle boards, they're nice and sturdy and cope really well with.
And who's enjoying the British summer weather at the moment? Are you diving? Let us know where you're diving. That'd be good to hear from you. It's nearly time for us on our East Coast to jump in, and a lot of us go to like Weybourne, maybe Clay is another one. They've got a couple of wrecks up this way. Where else we like to go?
Sheringham Chalk Reef. We snorkeled that last year, so that's a brilliant thing to do even if you're a non-diver to get snorkeling.
Oh, definitely, on a low tide. That's really good, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So we've got dives around on this coast, but our window's really from about late June, anytime from about now, really. But looking at our sea, it's a bit murky.
It's a bit brown at the moment. Yes. On the water today, and it's not particularly. It's high winds and just not going to be the right conditions for another week or so.
No, but it would be good to hear from you if you are. Been jumping in this weekend. Where have you been? I did see Mel, our friend Mel. She's been diving abroad on the what's the name of it? Zenobia, yes. Which is awesome.
And that was her 500th dive.
Congratulations. Woohoo! Well done, Mel. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was really good. So Yeah, but let us know, if you've got any big dive anniversaries coming up, like your 100th or your 200th, 500th. Yeah, where you were and what happened.
You've got yours coming up soon.
Yeah, funny. I had one of my colleagues at work in the prep room say to me, "You must be near 100, Gemma."
That must be.
Yeah, he said, "Can I come and watch?" And I said, "No, I'm not doing it."
Well, you know what the tradition is on the 100.
Yeah, you don't wear you go in starkers.
Yeah,
I know
I
exactly what he
did.
was saying.
I did.
You didn't.
I did.
Where? In your bath?
Yeah, in my mind. In my mind, that's what I done, and I claimed that victory.
To everybody else to imagine, yeah.
And I'll be happy to cheer anyone else on. Well done. Go to Stony Cove, do your 100th, and bear all.
Yeah, I think my 100th might be in the Farne Islands, to be honest.
We're all friends here.
Yeah, let it all hang out.
Yeah. That's what they say in the diving world. We're all friends here. You know? So there we go.
Anyway, yes, but yeah, drop us a DM, drop us an email. We always like to hear from you.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Okay, so our guests, we've got Michael and Robert Thomas. Now, we spoke to these, as you said, a few years ago, back in May 2020. COVID time. That was lockdown.
We were locked down then, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who remembers May 2020 and what that was like?
I remember it being
but remember we all thought the world was going crazy and turning upside down.
Yeah, and wondering where it was going to come to an end.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And
how crazy.
Ironic thing was we were having amazing weather over that May, June, July. Amazing weather. And yeah, perfect diving conditions, but no one was allowed. And it was just So but yeah, May 30th of May 2020 we spoke to the boys.
Yeah. I believe you've got a little bit of a feedback from Michael.
Yes, so since I'd asked Michael for a bit of an update about what he and Robert were up to, they got involved in a project in Thailand, a caves project. That was in March 2024. The full report has been put in In-Depth magazine, so there's a link in the show notes to read a bit more about it. Currently, Robert is working in Indonesia.
All right.
He's doing he's an instructor now. He's teaching CCR and some technical diving, and also bits of open water qualifications as well. So
nice one.
Mixed bag there.
Yeah.
And then Michael, he's been teaching side mount and cave diving in the UK. So he is hoping to join Robert in Indonesia for some more CCR diving and then some cave exploration, seeing what they can find in Thailand. So that's all good news. And just an update on Michael, he is now the national training officer for the cave diving group in the UK. So that's really good news. So.
Yeah. If you don't know who the cave diving group, you need to listen to the podcast, because I know Michael does explain all about that. About that group, and the importance of joining one of them groups. That group, should you want to get into cave diving.
Yeah, I think they start dry caving, don't they? And then from there, if it floats your boat, you then go into actually getting wet and scuba diving in these caves. But again, it's learning all those skills to get you up to speed to dive in that environment.
Yeah. Well, it's not for everybody, and there's certain steps you've got to get through and be on point with your actual basic skills of diving before you even get there.
Yeah, definitely.
So because there's, it's kind of, when you're doing something like that, that's kind of expected that you're going to be of a certain level. It's not for the beginner of diving, put it that way. So and they came recommended to us via our good friend Christina.
Yeah, Christina Zanato. Yeah. So I think
it's cool.
Yeah, it's all these people are linked, which is amazing.
That is the diving world. It's a small world.
Yeah, and it's a great dynamic to have. Obviously, Robert has grown up right from the very beginning with his dad being into caving and diving, and it's obviously just been a natural or he's taken an interest in it, and that's where he is now. He's
gone with it. Yeah.
So
which is cool.
Just shows you. Yeah. So
Brilliant.
that is Michael and Robert Thomas, what they're up to now. So
Yeah.
I'll put their social media handles in the show notes so that you can follow them and see what they're up to and see some of their pictures and just keep up to date with what they're doing going forward.
Yeah. And don't forget to have a look at our sponsors' website. Make sure you're following them on the right Facebook page, because they had unfortunately they got hacked a few weeks ago. They started up a fresh Facebook page. So make sure you're now following them on the right Facebook page. To do that, if you're unsure, send us a message. We'll direct you in the right place. But if not, always go to their website as well.
Yeah, okay. And I'll pop a link to the Facebook page in the show notes as well. So yeah, if you can give them a follow and get the numbers back up, that'll be much appreciated.
That's good. Right, should we get to the interview?
Yes, yep. So this is Michael and Robert Thomas, father and son, and they talk to us about their diving experiences back in 2020, but it is to celebrate Father's Day in the UK in 2024.
From one father to the others, happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Enjoy the Big Scuba podcast.
Robert, would you be able to introduce your dad for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously he's my dad. We're good friends. Just it's more like anything we do diving wise, I wouldn't really say it is a father-son relationship, obviously, but it's not a father-son relationship like you would normally have. It's more just like a friendship that we just go diving, really. So it's really nice from that point of view. Obviously he's been diving since the dawn of time, and I'm a bit younger than that. So yeah, he's done a lot of diving, lots of cave diving, lots of wreck diving, and yeah, it's a big source of inspiration for me for sure. And yeah, obviously probably most well known for the cave diving. He's the training officer of the Somerset section cave diving group.
Yeah.
And obviously a TDI instructor for a variety of different courses, all the way from sort of basic diving to full cave level.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. And over to you, Michael. You need to introduce yourself.
Oh, do I now? Right. Well, yeah. Robert's obviously my son. He's grown up with caving and diving his entire life. So, I mean, I started diving in 1987. Robert came along in 2000. So he didn't really. We did have a choice, but because he grew up around divers and around cavers, at the age of about 10, well, actually, it's a little bit before that. He started doing some shore dives on using 3-litre cylinders at about 8 years old.
Wow.
And when he was 10, I got a good friend of mine, George Vella, that runs the Calypso Diving Centre in Malta. George did his, the Calypso Dive Centre did his PADI Junior Open Water at 10. And he's just been building experience over the last 10 years, really. And in, get this right, November 2018, he did his IDC out in Malta and became a PADI instructor in his own right.
Brilliant.
And then crossed over to SDI and TDI. So Robert can also teach SDI Open Water and TDI Intro to Tech. Robert's also a member of the Cave Diving Group in the UK, and we press ganged him recently. We needed a new secretary for the section because the lady that was our club's, well, the group secretary had stepped down, and we needed a new one. So we press ganged Robert into the role. So he's got a few things on his plate diving wise now.
How are you keeping busy through the lockdowns?
For me, I mean, we've started diving again now, but this was the longest period. I think I had 63 days out of the water, because Robert and I were teaching a cave course in France when France went into lockdown. They were locked down slightly before us. So Robert and I got stuck in France with students. So we were sneaking around France for a couple of days trying to finish this course. And then we got the right paperwork to be able to travel to get out of France. And we drove out of France and straight into lockdown in the UK. So we sort of escaped France, but then we had, I mean, my Shearwater computer said 63 days, and that's the longest time I've been out of the water as a block for, I don't know, for many years. So I mean, for me, sort of personally, it has been quite difficult, and I have been climbing the walls. I've spent a lot of time doing research, looking back at old projects and planning new projects, and just trying to keep and also keeping my students occupied. Sometimes easier said than done, but
have you had to do a lot of theory sessions and things on Zoom and Skype?
We've been with TDI. They have a really good online training program. A lot of the theory can be done through online courses, so I can issue the theory as an online course, and then if they've got questions or they've got problems, they can email or pick the phone up. To be honest, I prefer them just to pick the phone up than email, because it's easier to talk to someone. And then if need be, we just get on Skype or Zoom or whatever. So
yeah,
that's good. So how about you, Rob?
I've had, well, obviously same situation. We left France and straight into lockdown in England, so it was a bit of a culture shock from a nice week's diving. It was a bit sneak diving, but it was still a nice week's diving. Then going into like just nice sunshine and everything's in condition to dive, and then not being able to dive it. So that was quite hard from my point of view. But I've been working on my Mod 3, like JJ Mod 3 theory. So I've spent a fair bit of time doing that, just working through it slowly and taking that all in. So I've actually quite enjoyed doing that. So that's been a good thing. I've also made a few videos, just different techniques we use in the UK cave systems. I don't know if you've seen them on Facebook at all. But yeah, they were quite fun to make as well. So that was a good little time filler. And then other than that, we've just been walking a fair bit because there's not a whole lot else to do. So just keeping the fitness up and doing some longish walks.
So you've been rock climbing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I got not during the lockdown, but once it's eased, obviously only recently, like last week and the last couple of weeks, we've been able to go down to the seaside and do some climbing. So that's been really nice. I've definitely missed that. I definitely missed the view of the sea as well. It's been quite nice. I went for a swim just in my shorts the other day, and that was fresh.
I bet.
So that was good.
Brave.
Yeah, it was sunny though, so it was all right. You warmed up pretty quick afterwards, but it was a nice feeling.
Yeah. So whereabouts are you actually based?
About 40 miles south of London, Farnham, quite near Guildford. I don't know, like between Guildford and Portsmouth kind of thing. So not that far from the coast. I mean, Swanage, Portland, like Swanage is about an hour 40. Portland's like 2 and a bit hours, and then you've got Portsmouth, so there's some decent diving off Portsmouth as well, and that's only like 50 minutes.
So do you find the skills that you do for rock climbing, do you find they come in handy for your cave diving? Can you like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of the sports I do, they kind of, well, we do, even not just me. They do tie in very nicely. I mean, you got we'll start with caving, because dry caving, you learn so much more about the cave environment than you ever would from doing a TDI cave course, if that makes sense. I mean, you're just going to learn infinitely more by being in the dry in that environment than you can do whilst being wet in that environment, if that makes sense, because you can talk about it, you can see things. If you're diving like this, you've got your box in front of you that you're looking at, but if you're walking through it, you're just sort of a bit more aware of your surroundings. You can sort of paint the cave picture very nicely. So from that point of view, that is a massive advantage doing that. And then obviously the climbing ties nicely in with the caving. And yeah, obviously if we're doing some bigger dives and getting out of the water again, then you still need to be able to carry your kit and cave comfortably and potentially climb comfortably as well. So yeah, they definitely do transfer very nicely.
A mutual friend of ours, Christina Sonato, said that when she came on the podcast, and it just made me think of it when you were talking about your rock climbing, she said that line is life. And it's very true. You know, line is life, and that's the one thing that keeps you alive.
Absolutely.
If you do fall.
Sure.
So I can see
that's a good saying. I quite like that one.
It is, isn't it? It's one thing that's remembered. You know, I've remembered with that. It's very good. Have you listened to that podcast? It's quite,
definitely,
quite
absolutely. We'll have a look at it.
So with Michael, you know, how did you? I know you've explained this to probably on other podcasts, but for people who've not heard those ones, how did you first get into cave diving, or how did you first start diving, Michael?
Right. Oh, well, I was. I need to go back a little bit in history. My father was, as a young man, was part of the Royal Aircraft Engineering Establishment, the RAE at Farnborough.
Was it?
The RAE was linked to the RAF, and he was stationed on Malta in the 1960s with the Royal Aircraft Engineering Establishment, and he kind of fell in love with Malta.
Yeah.
And then when I came along in 1973, not long after that, my father and mother purchased a house on Gozo, the smaller of the two Maltese islands. So I spent a lot of my younger years growing up. We used to sort of live on Malta sort of 2 months of the year, or on Gozo 2 months of the year. And I spent a lot of my early years messing around and playing on Gozo, climbing and exploring caves. And when I got to about 14, you know what 14-year-olds are like. You're not old enough to be left at home, but you're definitely too old to be on holiday with your parents. So I was locking horns with my father, and I remember him sort of shouting at me one day, "So what do you want to do then?" And I just happened to be stood outside of the Calypso Diving Centre, which at the time was the only diving centre on Gozo. So I pointed at it and I said, "Well, that looks like fun. Can we do that?" And that then cost my father a fortune, because he had to fund my diving until I left school. So that's kind of how I got into diving. And
did you just take to it straight away?
Sorry?
Did you take to it straight away?
Did I take to it? I'd apart from nearly drowning, learning to mask clear, then yeah, I did. I mean, the initial. I didn't do a course originally. We did what they used to call a resort course, and it wasn't a course. It wasn't a course that was attached to any agency. Now remember, this was back in sort of 1987, and I did this resort course. It was five dives. And on my 5th ever dive, we were down at 30 meters. And then when I got back to the UK, I'd loved it. I'd had a proper adventure. I came back to the UK, and then I had trouble joining a diving club in the UK because I'm 14 years old. The British Sub-Aqua Club, their minimum age limit was 16 at that time. Yeah. So eventually they met the local BZAC club to me, which was Alton BZAC, which unfortunately is no longer in existence. It died a death many years ago. But they were quite rogue. They didn't really toe the line that well.
Really?
And they got they just let me join, and I kind of bluffed my way through 2 years of diving, and I did become the country's youngest BZAC dive leader, because as soon as I was 16, I was made up to a BZAC dive leader, because I've been diving with them for the last 2 years. And all of a sudden, that they just assumed that I'd done this, literally I'd spent the whole summer going novice sports diver, dive leader. And in fact, I'd spent 2 years doing it. And as soon as I was 16, I became a dive leader.
So it's quite good then, because like with Rob being regarded as one of the youngest cave divers in Britain, or was when he first got into it, it's quite good that he's now, he sort of followed your footsteps, in that way, and both sort of really took off in that. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the nice things now is it's all a lot easier. We're not fighting these sort of misconceptions that diving, you've got to be 6 foot and built like a naval diver to join the diving club. A lot of, I mean, that was a problem back in the mid 80s, the early 80s, and I grew up through all of that, and it's nice now to yes, we've got age limits for a reason, and we've got training limits for a reason, but getting the youngsters involved now and being able to get them involved at a much younger age, in my opinion, is fantastic, and that's what we need. Yeah. But on the other side, I would never push them to do it. Robert's wanted to do it. I have never said we are going to go cave diving. Yeah. He has always said to me, I would like to do that. And I've always said, right, if you want to do that, then we are going to do X, Y, and Z to achieve that. But now I've got to a point where Robert watches my back as much as I watch his, which is superb.
So what level are you up to? Can you I think you're at one of the highest levels now, aren't you? So can you go any further?
I can teach pretty much anything on the cave spectrum, from sort of cavern diving all the way through to the sort of niche specialist things for TDI. I've got a sump diving course. They've got a vertical access sump diving course, so I can teach all the little obscure things as well as all the run of the mill, run of the mill sort of cave diving courses.
Yeah. And do you know is there any other father and son cave diving teams out there?
Yeah, I mean there's Lamar Hires and Jared Hires in America. Lamar Hires is Dive Right. Well, Lamar and Jared are Dive Right USA. They're a father and son cave diving team. I mean, if you go back into the history books, you've got you had a very famous one, Chris and Chrissy Ruse. It was a father and son team, and there's a book. I can't remember the name of the book. It's not John Chatterton. I've lost the name of the book. There's a very famous book and it didn't end well. The Chris and Chrissy Ruse got it all horribly wrong, diving a shipwreck off the east coast of America. I'll think of the name of the book in a minute.
Right.
And there's also a father and son team. I don't know if you remember. I think it's Shipwreck Detectives. It was a Canadian.
Yeah.
It was a Canadian TV program. And that was a father and son team that were exploring shipwrecks all around the world. So there are a few around, but there's not that many.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Today's episode is sponsored by Narked at 90, so let's find out a bit more about them. Narked at 90, their tagline has been beyond technical, which describes them pretty well. John Routley and Brent Hudson launched the company over 20 years ago. They are both technical divers who have logged thousands of mixed gas dives between them over a 30-year period. Using their engineering know-how and diving expertise, have developed bespoke, personal, commercial and military diving equipment and products of a universally recognised, unparalleled calibre.
Their ability to be adaptive and versatile with their developments led them to support the NHS during COVID. Using their superior knowledge of breathing and oxygen monitoring systems to help develop emergency ventilators. They also design and supply the sneaky stuff used by defence-based development groups throughout the Western world, although they can't tell us much about that. If you're thinking of moving across to tech diving or completely new to diving, Narked at 90 can advise and guide on the best equipment and setup for your personal or commercial requirements. Narked at 90 have unparalleled experience of shearwater dive computers and are the longest serving and sole and UK European service centre for those. They are happy to offer technical support, servicing, repairs and upgrades to all shearwater computers, past and present. Narked at 90 stock shearwater computers, but are also stockers and technical support centre for many other manufacturers, including Divesoft, CCR, Hollis, Revo and Kiss rebreathers.
Based centrally in the UK, Narked at 90 also offer full rebreather head servicing for selected manufacturers.
Bespoke cable assemblies.
Advice on specific fitting requirements.
Suggestions and guidance for home builds.
Computer laser cutting and engraving.
Pressure testing to simulate 400-metre dives.
So, Narked at 90, a reputation built on supporting both manufacturers and divers worldwide.
Go to narkedat90.com and make sure you are following their social media to keep up to date with their latest news and offers. So why not wreck diving? Or, you know, what was it about you? What was it about cave diving that won you over? And you thought, right, you know, cave diving is where you're going to do your thing.
Cave diving is definitely not just where we do our thing. We absolutely love shipwrecks as well, for sure. Dive both of them. There's no one thing. We're most well known for caves, but I absolutely love shipwrecks. I mean, I cut my teeth learning to dive off the south coast out of Swanage. Yeah. So just jumping in the sea off the back of the boat is still probably the most natural diving feeling, in my opinion. Yeah. It's just a case of expanding and doing as much underwater stuff as possible, really. Yeah. But yeah, from that point of view, I'd say I equally like wrecks as much as I like caves. Definitely, I'd probably do more caves than I do wrecks, but I like them equally, for sure.
Yeah. So in terms of, did your dad do your training right through
No, he has done. Obviously, I have done a lot of training with him because he's been my main dive partner for the last 10 years. So I've obviously learned tons from him. But I've from day one, he's always shepherded me off to other instructors. I mean, when I did my open water, he didn't dive with us at all. Then it was just I was off with the instructor doing that, and that's kind of been the same throughout, really. I've obviously dived with Christina Zanato. I did a couple of. Well, at the time, they're probably the biggest cave dives I'd ever done by a significant distance. So yeah, that was cool. And then literally just diving with as many different experienced people as possible to try and gain as much experience as possible, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely if you are a father-son dive team, I'd recommend diving with other people as well, just because if they're doing it their way and you might not necessarily like it that exact same way, because we have different ways of doing everything, really. They're not all the same. They're similar, but not all the same by any means.
Yeah. So when you were learning, going through the journey, did you have people of a similar age to yourself, or were they mostly older?
Honestly, they were mostly older. To be fair, there wasn't. When all the courses I've done, probably like, I don't know, half of them have probably been on my own anyway. But there's not been many people of a similar age, for sure. I mean, when I was learning to dive, when I was doing the course there was other people, but they were probably in their 20s when I was 10 even, sorry. So a bit of an age gap there, but I think it's not a bad thing for me. Definitely as a person, it's made me be able to socialise quite nicely with a wider range of people, rather than some of my friends. They try and have a conversation with an adult, and it's like a really alien concept. But for me, it's just like caving clubs full of adults, diving full of adults. So you learn pretty quick what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. So what do your fellow peers of a similar age think of you doing your diving? And
they're all very supportive. I mean, a lot of them I've taught a couple of my friends to dive as well, so they're happy with that, and a couple more want to learn afterwards. So yeah, they're all really supportive. Most of my friends are quite outdoorsy and active anyway. Like they've got other interests. They climb, and none of them cave, but well, some do, but not my close friendship group kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, everyone's really supportive. I think there's definitely been an increase in young divers in the last 2 years, for sure. I've personally seen a massive increase, which is really nice, and we just want to promote that as much as possible. Yeah. Hopefully in somewhen soon we'll try and organise a young divers day, but just it's in early stages at the minute. But yeah, hopefully that will be something we're looking to do.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But that'd be cool.
Yeah, and as a podcast, we want to show that diving is very accessible to younger people, and particularly women and young girls as well, rather than have this kind of image that it's for older people or it's expensive. Just to kind of widen it. And so the podcast, we want people, even non-divers, to listen to it, to maybe be inspired.
Yeah, definitely. So with regards to your training that you received, a lot of that was from your dad. Did the training from your dad differ much from what you've had from other instructors?
Absolutely. I mean, pretty much every instructor I've dived with, I've learned a different tip or trick. Even if it's something tiny, like, I don't know, just a different way of clearing your mask, for example. Like I learned a new way of clearing my mask the other day, which I'd never done before. So which kind of blew my mind, to be fair, because yeah, instead of like just putting it on your face and clearing it, he cleared it and then put the strap on, and I was like, oh my God. It's mind blowing. But yeah, that stuff like that, you just, every day's a school day. If you stop learning, then you kind of
you always got to learn
it, really.
You always got to learn.
Absolutely,
every day you've got, and I always think that must get harder the more experienced and the more qualified you get, how you then carry on learning, because that point gets harder, because you're taking on so much information. You think, right, what else have I got to learn?
Yeah, for sure. At that point, it sort of goes more into consolidation of skills rather than necessarily learning a whole new set of skills. You'll be able to refine and improve the skills you've already got. So, but even as experienced divers, we both, I mean, I can speak for the both of us here, I'm sure we will continue to learn every time we dive. Like, it's the way it works.
Yeah, and the level that you're both at, I suppose you'll get the enjoyment, I guess, from not so much the information that you're now learning, will be about how you can now pass that on to other people.
Absolutely.
By teaching and training.
And as instructors, obviously, we might not necessarily learn a skill, but we're going to learn how to portray that skill to a student. So that's as satisfying.
But when you get back home and you're like, right, excellent, we're going to be in the UK for a few months. Is there a place where you think, right, we're going to go back down there? It always feels like home. It's a familiar place. Where is that for you guys?
I mean, Yorkshire's a solid bet for cave diving. Yorkshire,
Wookey
that area is Wookey Hole. Absolutely, yeah, that's a classic for sure. I mean, that's one of the best dive sites in the UK, in my opinion, for sure. And it's for us, it's accessible, which is really, really nice, and a massive benefit, because it's a great training site, and it's a great dive in its own right. But yeah, I mean, the whole Somerset area, you've got Wookey Hole, which is the famous one, but then surrounding it, you've got hundreds of caves and hundreds of different caves with diving in as well. So it's not just the one at Wookey. There's tons around that area, the whole Somerset area, and that's where our caving club is, the Wessex. So that's pretty much my second home as well, or both of our second homes.
Do you share the same opinion, Michael, about?
Wookey is the home of British cave diving. Cave diving in the UK started in Wookey Hole in 1935. So we've had the cave diving group had a long relationship with the cave. We've been down there in the last couple of weeks, actually working with the show cave manager to implement COVID-19 procedures, so for when they get ready to reopen. So it's really nice that they've actually turned round and said to us, can you get involved in this? Because we're going to put divers back into the cave as well as tourists, so we need your input. So we've managed to get back there and just get underground a little bit as well, working with the guys down there. Wales is another classic area for me. As Robert said, Yorkshire's fantastic. For me, I've got a bit of a soft spot for South Wales for the caving, but also looking at the wreck diving. If we want to just jump out in the sea on a nice day, there's so much on the south coast. You get out of Swanage, Weymouth, Portland. There's so much wreck history
out there.
First and Second World War and accidents in between. A little bit further afield, you've got the classic iconic Scapa Flow in the top of Scotland. Again, it's only a day's drive away, and you can get there. So we do have so much in the UK. We are, and if we can't leave for 6 months, then it's not going to be too much of a massive trauma, because we have got loads to go at.
And there's variety as well, isn't it?
Part of the remit of the cave diving group is our primary existence is the further exploration of caves, be they underwater or in the dry cave once you've passed the sump. Okay. Our other remit within the cave diving group is to supply submerged cave rescue techniques to the cave rescue organisation. Now, cave rescue organisation in the UK is linked to mountain rescue, but obviously cave diving is a very specialist occupation. So you can't train a cave rescue or mountain rescue operative to cave dive. It's better to train a cave diver to be able to rescue and perform cave rescues. So within the cave diving group, we run cave rescue training for our own members.
Right.
It just so happened that about a month before the Thai rescue kicked off, we had run a big practice rescue session at Wookey Hole. So, but we didn't know anything about the Thai thing at the time, because it was before it had happened. But it did stand everyone in really good, it gave everyone a good footing. Because when it kicked off, the last training exercise that we'd done had literally been the month before. So everybody was able to draw on a very recent practice rescue. But also what's happened now is the guys that we sent out to Thailand, they've come back and gone, right, in the real world, this worked, this didn't work. So since then, we've done more training exercises using the experience that the lads came back with, and we've refined what we're doing here. Okay. So it's that was a big learning curve, it was a huge, well, not big, it was a huge learning curve for everybody involved. So
yeah, and made worldwide press and everything, and that was a happy finish as well.
With a very happy outcome. Yeah.
Are you still on call for these sort of things?
We're any qualified member of the cave diving group, unless they opt out, they are immediately put onto the Cave Rescue Organisation's diving call-out list. So we don't put trainees on the list, but any qualified member, yes. So basically, yes, both myself and Robert are on that call-out list for diving rescue.
Yeah, well, there can't be that many people across the globe who have got your experience and mindset, because there is a certain mindset to get into this.
Yeah, I mean, the mindset is, I'm glad you touched on that, actually, because the mindset of CDG style training is very different. And it touches on the mountaineering side, is you're kind of not allowed to have an accident, because there are some places that we go to that if you did have an accident, the chances of rescue are actually very, very remote.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to go to these places, you need to have this mindset that says, I'm just not going to do it because I can't afford to do it. And also having that dry caving background, being able to transfer from diver to caver back to diver, again, is a very different mindset from like a TDI or INATD trained cave diver that only ever swims around in a flooded cave. They don't ever transition from dry cave to underwater and back to dry again.
Yeah.
There aren't many of us that do that. In the grand scheme of things, there aren't many. The cave diving group has got less than 180 members in the UK. That's not 180 active members. I would probably say there's probably less than 60 or 70 active members. Caves are so diverse. There are so many different types of cave that if you train in one area, say you did your cave training in Mexico, that makes you a cave diver in one area. It doesn't mean to say that you can transfer those skills to diving successfully in the UK. That you do need to change and assess the environment and the geographical region that you're in. I mean, we had a good friend of ours. He's actually, I did the lads advanced nitrox course about 4 or 5 years ago. He then went on down the rebreather route, and he did a rebreather cave course in Florida. Then he came back to the UK and he went off to do some mine diving in North Wales. And for him, it turned out into a bit of an eye-opener. He had a big day out and ended up aborting the dive not very far from base. And then he came straight home and he got on the phone and he said, Mike, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you about British cave diving. He said it's very different from the 3 weeks of training I've just done. I've just gone diving in the UK and I've had the whole thing handed back to me on a plate. And I started laughing, and then all was well. He wasn't hurt, but it was just a big eye opener.
Yeah.
Do you prefer cave diving in the UK?
Cave diving in the UK is great. But if you go to, say, France, for example, the caves are much more impressive, I would say. Not that UK caves aren't impressive. There is different sections that are equally as good, but in general, like, the water's clearer, they're bigger, they're nicer, they've got nicer things in. UK caving is quite a niche market to like, really. There's a lot of legwork for the rewards you get, so you've got to really enjoy doing it. But yeah, absolutely, there's great rewards to be had in caves all over the UK. So, and there's tons of them, so it's pretty much an endless playground, really.
Have you got a kind of cave that you'd like to explore anywhere in the world? Have you got something on your bucket list?
I'd like to do Order Cave in Russia. That's definitely on the list. I've not been to Mexico. I've not been to Florida, so they both interest me. Mexico is less on my list than, say, Florida, but still really nice big caves. I'd love to go back to the Bahamas and do some more stuff there, because that dive was just absolutely lovely. There's definitely sites I would like to go to, for sure.
Yeah. So for any young divers listening to this that have done the normal diving course and they're thinking about going into cave diving, You got any advice?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Don't rush. Definitely don't rush, because it's not the type of environment or thing to be rushed. You want to take it super slowly. Just relax into it. I always kind of imagine I've got so much stress my body can take, and the calmer you are before the dive, the more stress you can take in the dive. So that would be a good bit of advice, is if you're not feeling comfortable, and the chances are you're not going to be 100% comfortable when you're first doing it. I remember my first overhead environment dive was in the silica mines. I was shitting myself. I was so scared. It was terrible. But yeah, no, it just grew from there, really. So it's all right to be scared as well, for sure, because it is an intimidating environment, and that fear aspect definitely sharpens your senses. So I think a little bit of, like a turning tummy kind of thing when you're a bit nervous is definitely a good thing. But yeah, just take it slowly, explore your options. There's lots of different ways you can do it. So there's not one way of doing it.
Yeah, that sounds good. Best not to rush.
Yeah, definitely. Best not to rush and just enjoy the dive when you're doing. Don't try and progress to the next level without being 100% comfortable at the level you're at. I mean, I can't even count the amount of 30-meter dives I've done out of the South Coast. So many, and that base has been a really good base to now progress, and I'm super happy because I've got that solid foundation. I'm finding myself more comfortable, even when I'm pushing myself outside of my limit. I'm still comfortable in that limit, if that makes sense. Just because I know I'm just confident in my own ability of what could go wrong, and having the knowledge of what could go wrong and being able to compromise for that.
Yeah. So it's a question for both of you. Who in the diving world inspires you?
There's a lady called Imi Wallin. She's a massive inspiration to me. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's Finnish, finding shipwrecks. That's her thing. She literally just works on a boat and goes and finds shipwrecks. But she does absolutely awesome diving, for sure. She's definitely up there on my list of cool divers and inspirations.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. I haven't heard that name before.
No, I was going to say, Imi Wallin is someone that I think would really, should probably appreciate you guys contacting her. Actually, we can send you the details. Her English is very, very good. No, her English is very, very good. She lectures a lot. She spends her life researching and finding Russian and Finnish First and Second World War submarine wrecks in the Baltic.
Okay.
So she does some seriously hardcore diving, and she's a seriously lovely lady as well. So she's probably someone that you guys should contact. I'll send you her details.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
But anyway, going back to sort of who inspires me, there's so many people. Anyone really that's doing good exploration. People like Christina. I mean, she's going to hate me for saying this, but she is an inspiration in her own right. I know it was Christina that said, "Oh, you guys want to speak to us?" People like Sammy Packerin. Any of the guys that are out there doing stuff. But I suppose being a little bit older, a lot of my inspiration was taken from some of the older divers that built the sort of history of technical diving. People like Rob Palmer, Rob Parker. Those guys they put the sort of the stones down. That saying that you stand on the shoulders of giants. Well, a lot of the sites that I'm researching and a lot of the sites that I've done exploration in, the original exploration was done by those guys. So I'm kind of, I am walking in their footsteps to do this stuff.
We spoke to John Chatterton, and one of the things he was explaining to us, and it was just like mind-blowing, really, that he was doing these really deep dives with rebreathers that he knew were, let's just say, he was still banging them together. He knew the chances are it was going to go wrong, but he was doing it to develop the system, the rebreather system. And, he obviously had the bailouts with him, but he was doing these really deep dives, full knowing that chances are he's going to have to repair it and fix it. I mean,
a lot of my early expeditions in the sort of 1990s, when rebreathers were in, I started rebreather diving in 1996. and I've been around rebreathers a long time, but in the 90s, anything to do with rebreathers, if you went on an expedition in the 1990s and it had a rebreather involved, you would be sat at the kitchen table in the Jeep that you were in with a soldering iron, repairing it every single evening. I don't miss the repairing the rebreathers every night game.
No.
Because it's, for the fourth day in a row, sat there at midnight with a soldering iron, scratching your head, trying to get it going, getting it back together. And then 10 hours later, you're in the water on it for 4 hours, hoping that your soldering was good. I kind of don't miss that. And I kind of like now being able to phone up AP or JJ and just go, right, guys, can you send me part number, X22? And then 2 days later, it drops through the letterbox.
Yeah.
But there was back in the 90s, it was an adventure. It was definitely more of an adventure. But we spent more time fixing things than we did actually diving. Having said that, it is an improvement. Rebreather reliability is definitely it's definitely a godsend that it has improved.
Yeah.
But one thing it has done is I'm now finding new divers on rebreathers are trusting it too much because it never fails. They trust it completely.
Right.
Where because I've grown up with these units not working, I don't trust them. Even now, I still don't trust them. And from a longevity and life-saving point of view, when I'm teaching rebreathers, I'm a lot more pushy on make sure you do your checks, because there's a reason that you're doing these checks, and it's not just me following the standards of the course. There's a reason because of what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
And I know that reason, so it's much easier for me to understand why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So what rebreathers are you using at the moment?
I've got a JJ, and my dad's got a AP Inspiration and a KISS Sidewinder as well. So there's a couple of units in the shed.
Yeah.
And do you swap over? Do you use each other's, or are you specific to your?
We have swapped over. I have dived his and he's dived mine, but mine is predominantly the JJ, and his is predominantly the AP and the Sidewinder. But that's not to say I couldn't if we wanted to. Like we're not fussy about it. Like
one of our things that we try and push is, and we just had Reef World on, and we're trying to bring more awareness to conservation and pollution and things like that. One of the things that John Chatterton told us was he was in Bikini Atolls and how much plastic pollution and other pollution he saw. So are you finding this when you're doing some of these cave exploring? Are you finding any signs of of stuff creeping through the system into when you're diving?
If it's true like virgin exploration, then there's very minimal sign of there's no sign of other humans. The only exception to that would be if stuff gets washed, if it's a river cave and stuff gets washed down the river from the outside and travels through the cave. But in regards to like actual human rubbish from other humans that have been there, there's very little. And cavers are in general pretty good at conservation and preserving the environment, because obviously there's very delicate formations and nice rock which you don't really want to damage. So there is different conservation in places in lots of the caves in the UK. But yeah, I mean, as a rule, I'd say that we were pretty good at maintaining and keeping the areas quite nice. It's very rare to go caving and see like plastic bottles at the side of the track as you walk up. I'd say divers are less good at that. I'd say I'd find more rubbish at a dive site than I would at a caving site for sure, by a significant increase as well. Not saying it's always bad, but there is obviously humans do make a mess. So from that point of view, it needs to be improved. But yeah, in exploration terms, no, there's pretty. It's nice to be away from. It's nice to be in a fully natural environment, so to speak, rather than somewhere you've got other human influences.
Yeah, well, that's good.
One of the from a conservation point of view and pollution, one of the things that caves do suffer from is not necessarily having the plastic problem. It's groundwater pollution. It's farms that have got a silage pit or a septic tank that's ruptured, Or we had one recently in Somerset where a farmer's diesel storage tank had split. So diesel was leaking down into the ground. It makes its way down through groundwater, and then the cave underneath the farm was being polluted by diesel that was drip feeding down through the rock, drops into the streamways, and then the diesel was coming out 3 or 4 kilometres down the valley into the river, and it was the river authorities that picked up this diesel, because the diesel was then working its way down through the villages as an open river, and eventually it was with cavers' help and cave divers' help. The diesel was tracked all the way back up the river into the cave, all the way through the cave, and eventually it was tracked to a farm that had a leaking diesel tank.
Blimey.
So that to be fair, that was a fairly small leak. But in places like Florida, where the Florida aquifer is monumental, big industry that's polluting the groundwater is a huge issue. Because humans need water. We need water to survive. Yeah. And groundwater pollution. And Christina has the same fight in the Bahamas with groundwater pollution. In the oceans, we've obviously got plastic problems. You don't tend to see that underground, as Robert says, but the big problem is physical, liquid pollution. But underground, it's got to be flushed out. There's nothing we can really do with it.
No. Because all these caves are all getting mapped out. Because Christine was telling us about the Nemo system that they use which logs into Google Earth and maps. So you can see exactly where these caves are all going. So when it comes to building works, building development, they can actually see where the caves are when they're thinking about putting new developments in. So do we have the same system in the UK?
All cave systems that are explored do get surveyed and mapped. And the classic one recently down at Wookey Hole, they wanted to extend the show cave. About 4 years ago, they wanted to extend the show cave into Wookey 20. But to be able to put a new tunnel through so tourists could access a new part of the cave, the whole thing had to be resurveyed at a much higher grade. So that survey technology increases, like all technology, surveying systems and technology and the way that a diver can survey underwater gets better and better as each year. So yeah, we do produce maps of caves. It's part of what we do, because by producing the map, you understand where it's going. If you understand where it's going, you can then hopefully find more.
And what about marine life? Obviously in the caves, do you come across much, as well as obviously the open ocean?
Yeah, in the caves in England, there's a fair bit of life. In the mines, there's not so much because it's a static environment, and the only thing anything has to eat would be the wood that's decaying, like the pit props that are in the mines and stuff. So we have found really weird little microbacteria in the mines in North Wales, sort of like kind of like an extending leech, but really, really skinny. So that was quite a cool little find. So there is life there, but not very much. If you go into the caves, you've got little cave shrimpy things they're kind of like remipeds. They're not really true remipeds in England, but they are of that kind of thing. So like Wookey, for example, there's tons of little shrimp in there that just swim about. Obviously trout, frogs, anything like that. I found a newt at the bottom of a cave once that had obviously fallen in, so I rescued him and brought him back to the surface. That was quite cool. But yeah, there is a fair bit of wildlife. Obviously bats as well. Obviously they've been quite topical in the news recently, but we like them.
So what is your favourite marine animal?
Oh, probably nudibranchs, to be honest. Anything nudibranchs is cool. Obviously big fish as well. Anything bigger than me is cool. Basically, but yeah, if I had to say a specific animal, I'd probably say nudibranchs, different species of nudibranchs. I love them. They're cool.
What's the biggest marine animal you've actually experienced?
The biggest mantas is the biggest I've experienced. I dived in Bali and there was a black manta that was like huge, probably like 2 or 3 meters across his wingspan. It was monster. So amazing. Yeah, that's probably the biggest one I've seen. Obviously just reef sharks, stuff like that. I've not seen that many sharks, which I would love to see more of. so they're on the list. But yeah, I'd say the mantas were the biggest ones.
If you could dive or snorkel with 3 people, they don't have to be a swimmer, diver, or a snorkeler. Who would you choose? They can be past, present, they can be family, they can be well known. The 3 people.
That's a good question. I mean,
It's got thinking about it.
yeah, definitely. That's a thinky one, isn't it? Probably anyone that's found a lot of cave. Like some of the guys in Yorkshire, that would be quite cool, just for the crack of it. Like Jeff Uden, who'd be cool, just because he's found tons of cave, and it'd be cool to get the experience off of him. I don't know. I'd quite like to dive the Britannic, so maybe the captain of the Britannic. That would be quite cool. That's a hard question. I like it. It's good.
That's right. What are you thinking? Should we ask
yeah,
your
I'll
dad?
have a think.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask my dad one?
Okay, so we'll go to the marine one first for you, Michael. Favourite marine animal?
My favourite marine animal is probably a cave creature called the olm, or a proteus. They're found, they're very rare, and they're generally found. Sorry?
I've not heard of these.
Do a Google search for proteus or the olm. OLM.
They're cool animals. They're really cool animals.
They're extremely, well, they're not extremely rare, but they only live. They live in sort of northern Italy and Slovenia, in the caves in that area. But they don't move. They stay stationed. They've been recorded at staying in one place for years on end. Because obviously they're a true troglodyte animal. They don't burn energy running around chasing, because there isn't anything to chase.
Yeah.
But I love them. I think they're fantastic.
And for your second question, so can you name 3 people who you'd like to either dive or snorkel with? So somebody from the past, they don't have to be a diver. Someone from the past, or anyone. It can be a member of the family. It can be anyone.
The first guy that comes to mind is a guy called Rob Palmer. Now Rob I knew Rob between 1995 and 1997, when he unfortunately didn't return from a deep technical dive. Now, I learned a lot from Rob in those 2 years, and I'd love to be able to snorkel with him now and just tell him what we now know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because back in the 90s, we were working a lot of this out, and he was working a lot of this out, and then unfortunately he left us a little bit early. So it would be really cool for me to be able to just go on a diving trip or snorkeling trip with him now, and just fill him in on the the gaps.
Yeah.
2 more. Some of the famous mountaineers. I mean, mountaineering and diving goes really hand. In my opinion, it goes hand in hand. The psychology and the ability to dive. So there was a Polish mountaineer called Jerry Kukuska. He was at top of his game, fantastic, real groundbreaking. He knew how to push the limits, and that's one thing that really does get me going.
Yeah.
And Robert mentioned Imi Wallen earlier. Imi's someone that I would, I'd dive and snorkel with tomorrow. She is just a fantastic person. I've known Imi for several years, but I've never had the chance to dive or snorkel with her.
I could answer that. I'd get my third one. I'll go with Gordon Ramsay, because I quite like his recipe.
Cool.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I bet he'd have a lot to say as well.
We could go and catch some lobsters and eat them on the beach or something like that.
That's a great one.
Favourite piece of dive equipment, kit, and why, Michael?
Favourite bit of kit. Probably my shearwater. Having spent many years diving all sorts of things, from the RNLI tables to BZAC 88 tables to all sorts of old computers that never really worked properly, to using the modern shearwater dive computer to be able to dial in exactly what I'm doing, have a reasonable amount of trust that it gets me out of the water safely, and its ease of use, and the fact I can change all the colours on the screen as well. That's quite cool. So I
Which one have you got?
I've got what have I got?
You got the Perdex. I've got
a Perdex.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they're good ones. I've got shearwater.
But they just make life so much easier now. It's just and yeah, it's intuitive and easy to use. I mean, some of the old mixed gas computers we used to use, it was like, you know, your computer was, if your computer was having a bad day, you weren't getting anything out of it. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Our next question, which I think you've already answered, who do you like to see us have on the show as a future guest?
Ooh, well, I mean, we've mentioned Imi a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, Imi's one for sure. Now, there's another another cave explorer, a guy called Sammy Packerin.
Okay.
He's done a lot of cave and a lot of shipwreck exploration in Scandinavia, the north. Now,
right.
Scandinavia and the Nordic areas, it's not an area that's particularly well known, but there's an awful lot to do up there.
But it's not easy diving up there either.
Well, you say that it's in the summer months. It's no worse than diving in, you know, the start of the season in the UK.
Really?
They're getting water temperatures of sort of 12, 13 degrees in the summer. So it's not terrible. So
yeah, that's good then. That's cool. And our last question, okay, and Rob, this will come to you as well in a moment, but Michael, this is for you. Our last question is, so if there's something you want to put on a billboard, and it can be a question, it can be a quote, but you want to get a message out to the millions and billions of people out there, what would you put on a billboard?
Enjoy the journey. Just, you know, that would be it. Just enjoy the journey. You know, so if we relate this back to diving, you know, everybody, what I'm seeing now is a lot of people are ticking diving off as a bucket list thing. I've done my PADI, I've done diving.
Right.
To find a diver that's been diving for you know, more than 6 years is quite rare now. We need to, for diving to be, you know, to continue for many years, we need to keep people in it. So we need to be promoting it as a journey, not just a do this course and then you've done it. It needs to be part of a journey.
That is so true. Me and Gemma have talked about is with diving, you just see where it leads you. You go with it, you know, learn to dive and go with it.
From an instructor's point of view, it's crucial that we sell dreams. We don't just sell training. We need to be instructing and showing people what else is out there, what you can do when you have learnt to do this.
Yeah.
You know, when you've done your open water, there are these sites and that you can go and dive. But if you want to go, like Robert wants to go out and eventually dive the Britannic. He's getting there. He's not quite there yet to be able to pull off 100-meter CCR dives. So that requires training. But he knows what he's doing the training for. He's got that dream and he's going for that dream.
Well, yeah, it's like we said before, just enjoying the stage you're at now in your diving and doing that diving. So and just don't rush it. It all links back into that really. But I mean, because at each level of your diving, so say depth is how we're gauging the level of your diving at the minute. For each level of that, there's going to be different things to look at and experience. So there's I mean, the ocean's endless, isn't it, really? And so are caves. Yeah,
and that comes across with some of the people that we've had on the Big Scuba podcast about taking time to enjoy sections.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not enjoying the section of diving you're at the minute, just take a look and see what you can change about it to hopefully enjoy it more. Because if you're not enjoying it at the end of the day, that's the whole point. It's fun. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So our third question for you, Rob. What's your favourite piece of dive equipment?
I've got some proper shiny Dive Right twin set regs. I like them just because they're really shiny and new.
They look cool, do they?
Yeah, exactly. But I also like my dry suit, my Otter dry suit, the Atlantic one. That's definitely my favourite bit of kit for sure.
Yeah, no, that's good. And again, like we asked your dad, who would you like to see as a future guest on the podcast?
There's a young girl called, her Facebook name is like Scuba Sophie. She's like 10, 12-ish. I'm not entirely sure how old she is, but I think she'd be quite a cool guest. Just for the youth aspect, I think she'd be really good. I'm sure she'd be up for it as well. She's done some she did a charity dive in a I think I can't. She did a charity dive building Lego underwater and raised a fair bit of money from that. So that's
cool.
But yeah, she'd be a really good one to get on. I'm sure she'd be up for it as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, we had 3 young guests back in the early episodes. We had Scuba Grace and Inca.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
May, yeah, but they just show you how far that you can go once you start the journey.
Exactly.
Yeah. And again, if you could put something on a billboard, doesn't have to be commercial, can just be a statement, an image or a question, what would you get out there to the world?
Don't follow the path, find your own path, and I mean, use other people. And this is not what I'd put, but I'd say just use other people's experiences to gauge where you're going in life, but make your own path.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes. Yeah. And a big thumbs up or something positive. Some funny image behind it.
The name of the game, positive. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, can I change that? Every day is a leg day.
Every day's a leg day.
Yeah, every day's a leg day.
You don't skip legs.
Don't skip legs. No, sorry, it's just that's a caving thing. Just when you're miserable and your legs are hurting, just remember every day's a leg day. Life is good.
Fair enough.
Very good.
Good. Do you have any questions for us?
Where are you? Once you can get back diving, where are you looking forward to going diving again?
Well, all being well, hopefully, because we did go. Although we did a short dive last night, it was the first dive that we've been back. So myself and a friend of mine just done one of the rivers in Norwich.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was fun. Never dived this river. It was quite hard to get into and get out again. It's one of them dives. You think, why are we doing this? I couldn't believe how much litter in the river. Not very deep though. We only got, I think the deepest point I got to was 3 meters. But we wanted to just explore it to see what was in there, and so we've done that, and it was fun. It was a nice one to do. But the first thing on our agenda is Gemma's open water. You know,
absolutely.
So soon as
you'll love that, especially if you do it in the sea.
Yes, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And not many people in England say they've learned to dive in the sea, so you can take that one off as well. You can you can definitely do that. That would be my top recommendation.
Yeah, and everybody says that if you can learn to dive in the UK where it's a bit cold, it's not very clear, then everything else is just
absolutely for sure.
Yeah, so and it's been, although obviously the theory we haven't been able to get in a pool, but even like last weekend just getting in the river, I've never done snorkeling in a river before. It's just like with fins on.
Yeah.
So it was quite good fun. So it makes you want to get in and do it more now, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah, but even to see some wildlife, like Ian's been to the Farne Islands, even just that experience of seals, just something that's UK based. It doesn't, I know the whole world's out there, but we've got so much here as well.
We've got you just said what I was going to say. We've got so much in the UK. There's just everything. We might not have the warmth, we might not have the visibility, but I've dived shipwrecks off the North Cornish coast with 15, 18 meters of visibility. So it is there. It is there. You just got to go find it. So,
and keep cozy, I suppose, with a dry suit on, and as long as you're cozy,
then it's all good. Yeah.
I mean, thermals these days are so good. There's no real excuse for being cold anyway, so you're fine.
Yeah.
There's an old mountaineering saying that if you're cold, you've got the wrong clothes on.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, all this to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure.
Where can our listeners find you both on social media? Where, if they want, anyone who's listening wants to follow you both, where are they best to go to find you both?
So both Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is literally just Robert Thomas. Instagram is Rob Thomas or Rob_Thomas 13. So that just both those profiles is good.
Okay.
Yeah, and mine is, I've got Michael Thomas diving. There's Michael Thomas diving on what's my Instagram, Robert? It's Michael Thomas 1946. I think so.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you very much. Perfect. That's brilliant.
And the same for you guys. If you've ever got any questions or queries,
all right, brilliant.
Just give us a shout. So.
Yeah. Okay.
If I need any advice, then
yeah, don't hesitate.
Yeah, no, it's been lovely meeting you both. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
And you guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you
Thanks
too.
very much for your time.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
See
you.
you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye. Now that does wrap up today's episode of the Big Scuba podcast. But if you want to hear more from the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button depending on what platform you are listening on. That way you will never miss an episode from us. But if you are listening on Apple Podcasts and did enjoy what you heard today, we would really appreciate it if you head to the show page to leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help us. If you do, please take a screenshot of that review and send it to us on Instagram, and we'll give you a shout out to say a big thank you. If you have any questions for us or anything that has been mentioned in today's episode, be sure to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms or send us an email. The links are in the show notes. We will get back to you no matter what. If you have made it to this point in the episode, we both want to say a big thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.